Okay.
Okay, so you can see everything, yeah? You can see the screen, all good. All right,
I can do.
So thanks for joining. This is a webinar focusing on what it's like to study in the UK and an overview of the university admissions process here in the UK. Thank you all for joining. It'd be great to just understand a bit about where people are watching from. I'm just going to launch a quick poll. If you could just click on the link as to where you're listening from. I'll just launch that now. So hopefully you should be able to see that. Can you see that side? Nice. Okay, so I'll give you 30 minutes and 30 seconds, and we'll have a look at that. So I'll end poll basically. Okay, that's interesting. So we've got one person from Europe, 20 people from Southeast Asia, and some people from Africa, North America as well. So yeah, great to have such a wide audience watching this webinar. Great. So going through the agenda for today. So firstly, we'll be introducing ourselves. Myself, Max Humpston, and my colleague, Si Anthony, a bit about our backgrounds. And then we'll be looking at Oxford summer courses in general, the kind of programs we offer for students on a yearly basis. Then we'll go into 8 things to know about studying in the UK. Why would you want to even study in the UK as well? We'll go through the points as to the positives as to why UK is such a great place to study for university. We'll then go through the Russell Group universities, outlining each one, and then going into a little bit of depth about those university selections for the UK. We'll look at the UCAS process overview. Then we'll go to how to select the right course for you, preparing your personal statements, top tips for university applications, and then we'll finally end on myself and Si Anthony's experience studying in the UK, things to look out for, experiences we had, why it's a great place to come and study, things to think about before you come study in the UK as well, whether you're a UK student or an international student. So, Si Anthony, I'd like to introduce you. If you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, that'd be great.
Thanks, Max. Hi, everyone. I'm Si Anthony, and I'm a former graduate of the University of Oxford. I studied the course in social and cultural anthropology, and it was generally the best time of my life. Since then, I've helped several students, different age groups, different nationalities, prepare for university applications in the UK. I've mentored students throughout their application process and have had successes with students going on to universities in Oxford, Cambridge, and other top Russell Group universities as well. Over to you, Max.
Fantastic, thank you. So yeah, I'm Max Humpston. I manage international school partnerships at Oxford summer courses. And I have many experiences studying overseas as well. I studied University of Salamanca, which is one of the oldest universities in Europe, as part of the Erasmus program, which is now replaced by the Turing scheme, something we'll talk a little bit about later on. I've worked in Spain and Hong Kong, and I'm generally passionate about inspiring students to take that opportunity to study overseas, and the incredible positives that it can bring you for your personal and professional lives. So moving on to the next slide, a little bit about Oxford summer courses. So we started back in 2010, founded by 2 Oxford graduates, Rob and Harry, and we offer 2- and 4-week academic programs in 60+ subjects for students aged 9 to 24 years, at locations in Wickham Abbey, Cheltenham Ladies College, University of Oxford, University of Cambridge, University of London, National University of Singapore, and we have a partnership with the University of Stanford as well in the US. So a bit about 8 things to know before studying in the UK. There are 395 universities offering over 50,000 undergraduate level programs here in the UK. All applications are made through the UCAS system. And whether you're a UK student or international student, all applications will go through the UCAS system. There are different deadlines to look out for depending on the course you're studying, the subject you study, and the different university that we'll also look at later on in the webinar. Things to know, obviously, about the tuition fees, which is very important. For UK students, it's £9,250. And then this will go up incrementally, whether you're either a UK student or international student. And it really will depend on the university that you apply for, depending on the international school fees specifically too. Generally, the first year, students tend to live in university halls of residences. So this is accommodation that is on the campus at the university, so it's super convenient. So you can get around, go to your classes, go to the library, all with ease. Another thing to consider is the need for a study visa. So this is particularly important, obviously, if you're studying from Europe, or you're further out of Europe as well, internationally. So yeah, that's an important thing to consider before studying in the UK. Living costs while at university will vary depending on the location as well, whether it's a city university or a university that's more rural. So these are all things to consider. And most universities in the UK will ask for your standard level of English, whether it's passing the IELTS, getting a minimum score there, or having some kind of proof that you do have a minimum level of English to successfully complete your chosen degree. Oh, sorry, yeah. And just before we move on, the UCAS website has a tremendous amount of resources with regards to all of this as well. So I would encourage you all to if you're looking to study in the UK, definitely visit ucas.com, which is a wealth of information. So why specifically study in the UK? It is one of the most popular destinations in the world to study for higher education. The universities in the UK consistently perform well in world rankings, and also have incredible research facilities and partnerships with other universities around the world as well. For example, the University of Oxford, correct me if I'm wrong, Science, but they have research facilities in Japan, in Asia, I believe, as well. So yeah, they have connections and research facilities that you can tap into during university and after university as well. UK higher education degrees and qualifications are well recognized by employers and academics around the world. So it will stand you in very good stead when you go to apply for jobs after graduating, that you have attended a reputable university in the UK. And there's also a huge diversity of cultures and nationalities and faiths in the UK as well. It's a real melting pot of students from all around the world. So you'll be able to build connections during your time here. A bit about university student statistics, international student statistics rather. The UK is the second most popular destination in the world, second only to the US. This means a global network of alumni from all around the world. The top 5 subjects to study for international students in the UK are business, engineering and tech, social studies, creative arts and design, and biological sciences. So as you can see here, there's been a steady increase over the years of international students coming in the UK. And here we see the top 10 countries of origin. As you can see, a significant number of students do come from China, then India, the United States, then Hong Kong, Malaysia, Italy. So yeah, very, very widespread around the world. So yeah, I'm gonna hand over to
Max.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I've just got a question on the chat. I think you're breaking up a bit at times, so it's just one for us to look out for.
Oh, really? Is it just the video, or is it the
voice? The video is fine.
Okay. Do you know what? I might actually go and do it back at my place. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've got to get better connection. Else, yeah. Well, I'll figure that out. That'd be fine.
Okay. So over to Russell Group universities. Now, obviously, it's become a bit of a buzzword in any kind of when students are applying for university. The Russell Group University is a term for a group of universities which have a shared focus on research and reputation for academic achievement. There are 24 of them currently. It can become quite a... Why choose Russell Group universities? So, by banding together, Russell Group universities are able to put more funding, contracts, grants, and awards their way. And this is why it, leads to student success, because success breeds success. So with more money to invest in research and other projects, the knock-on effect is that the universities are better equipped to attract the top staff and students, which then further cements their academic prestige. When it comes to, we get this question quite a lot, that, if I go to a Russell Group University, does that mean that I will definitely get a graduate job? When it comes to getting a job, obviously there are factors such as your grades, your experience, and interview, which become the real clinchers. But a top-class honours degree from a Russell Group University can give job applications a certain sparkle, and may open up some extra doors into competitive career options as well. Russell Group Universities offer a number of useful schemes that can make you work ready. And that helps you in your future job applications. Some big name recruiters may concentrate on visiting Russell Group Universities, and you can then move on to their graduate schemes, and they exhibited career fairs as well. But irrespective of what university you go to, you can always hunt out opportunities wherever you are. But we just thought it would be useful for you to just have a list of the universities that do fall in this band of universities.
Excellent.
Now, a few things, because I know that from the poll, we do have a lot of international students on here today. A few simple do's and don'ts when you're applying as an international student. When I applied as a student, I like to believe not many moons ago, but it's been ages now. These things was things that I had to look out for, and they're still relevant even today. So one of the things is to communicate with your school. For applying as an undergrad, especially, make an appointment with your careers advisor, head of year, or whatever, to discuss your application, and do that a couple of months in advance, because there's a lot of preparation that needs to go in from the time you decide to go to university to applying for it. Many schools that aren't based in the UK are unfamiliar with how UCAS works. So you have to be clear with, who you go to for your references, your predicted grades, which are really important. Do your research. You can never do enough of research. I would always say, in order to do research, the UCAS website is your go-to place, as Max mentioned earlier. The university websites. There are lots of things written by other people about universities. They can be helpful, but I would say go directly to the source of truth, see what the universities are asking for, what their requirements are, and you can never do enough research. Do check if you need to take an English language test. Some people are given waivers, so they don't need to do the tests. But if you do, it's good to know in advance, because in order to book them in specific centres and getting your grades in time for application, it can be a bit of a long drawn process. So, you can never be too early in doing your English language test. Also, you can also retake your test if you're not happy with your scores. So do allow yourself that time to prepare and take the test if you're needed to. This is, from personal experience, don't be discouraged if you don't get very much support. It is possible that, people only know the Oxford and the Cambridge when they think about UK. There are lots of fantastic universities here. So if you wanted to go to a less famous university and you were interested in it, don't stop the fact that people don't know about it from applying. So if you find your school doesn't provide the help you need, you can ask the universities directly, and you can contact UCAS. So that's always, a door that's open. And don't forget to check the grade requirements for your own country at the universities you're applying. Universities get international students through the door every year, so they are not unfamiliar with various nationalities and requirements, but in some cases you have to know about grade conversions, and you need to know what grades you need in order to get through. So it's good to just do a bit of research and check the grade requirements. Some universities ask for very high grades from international applicants. So, only to apply to places with grade requirements that, you think you can meet. And, above all, remember that most universities have hundreds of international students. So your nationality won't and does not put you at a disadvantage. They're looking for the best students wherever they're from. So that would be my advice on the do's and don'ts for applying as an international student. Fantastic. Over to you, Max.
Thank you. And Sansi, would you say that sometimes the biggest name, or biggest name university might not necessarily be the best place for you for your specific subject?
Absolutely. I think this is a really good point, because a lot of students, obviously, they've only heard of the really famous universities. But, you know, if you're driven by your subject, it might be worth looking at league tables to actually see where your subject ranks with those universities. Look up the faculty if there's someone you want to really work with. Don't let it limit, you know, where you apply. Yes, Oxford and Cambridge are great for, you know, almost everything, but they, you know, but some other universities are much better in certain subjects. So it, you know, prioritize based on what you need from this university experience. So that is also definitely something I would say, especially for internationals, because you can't actually more often, you can't just come over and have a look and do those sort of open days. So, you know, if you have questions, ask them questions. That's always helped. And the UCAS helpline, again, for international students is really, really helpful. No question is stupid, so, you know, and you won't know if you don't ask.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Yeah, and I'd just reiterate that as well, the fact that, you know, not just looking for the big names is a very important part of sort of carefully selecting your university choice. For example, University of Wales, Swansea, where I studied, might not necessarily be the biggest name university, but does have one of the best marine sciences courses in the UK, you know, specifically for that, due to its location and its research as well. So yeah, definitely something to look out for when you apply for your chosen universities. Okay, thank you. So we're just going to go through sort of an outline of the UCAS process and things to consider when sort of building your application. So as I said, you know, the UCAS process is essential for everyone who wants to apply for a UK university, whether you are, you know, from the UK or international student as well. And UCAS stands for Universities and Colleges Admissions Service. So firstly, the most important part is that you register and become you know, a candidate on the system. So that is by September. That registration needs to be completed. Things to consider are things like entry tests. So certain subjects will require specific tests in that subject to get enrolled into that course. So for example, the BMAT or the LNAT for medicine or for law are specific specific tests that you will need to complete. And then that also requires some preparation time for that as well, and may even require some specific tutoring to help you understand that specific exam process. So something to be aware of. Application completion includes course and entry choices and your personal statement, which we'll be looking at in a slide or two. So each applicant gets 5 course choices to choose on their UCAS system. And yeah, and the application submission needs to be done by the 15th of October for Oxbridge and medical courses in the UK, and also veterinary courses, I believe, as well. And this will depend on the university, but generally speaking, all other universities need to have their applications in by January, towards the end of January. And then some courses also require interviews, for example, with Oxbridge. Santi will talk a little bit more about those and what she experienced in her interview. And yeah, and then you need to firm up your choice, and then also consider insurance choices. So, you know, if you don't get into your first university selection, then that's not a problem. Don't worry, you know, you do have a backup there, potentially with a sort of wider net what's the word I'm looking for? Of results as well. So you don't put all your hopes into one university which has particularly high entrance requirements potentially. So yeah, again, something to think about, to have that insurance policy just in case. And yeah, just a quick point. We talk about Oxbridge a lot, just so some people might not be aware that Oxbridge is basically Oxford and Cambridge. So when we talk about Oxbridge, we talk about both universities because they both have similar application systems, interview processes. So yeah, we tend to group the two together. Okay, so selecting the right course for you. So how would you know about what kind of subject you might want to choose? Some people aren't really sure. So here's some four sort of key points about thinking about the right course for you and how you go about selecting that subject. So the most important thing really is to research the right degree choice for you. So think about what kind of subject you're naturally interested in. Again, the UCAS website is a really fantastic resource for drilling down on specific subjects, what universities are good in that subject, so you can really make a good selection for your UCAS university options. What's best for your fit, interest, and career development. So maybe you might be thinking of going into renewable energy, and you're not quite sure, but you want to get a sort of a well-rounded background in that. Why not start with something that's quite broad, and then you can narrow that down. So what will get you to where you want to be in your career? So yeah, very important to think mid to longer term as well, rather than just, oh, this is what interests me right now. Perhaps that is the one to choose, but actually, you might want to broaden your thinking and think, okay, what subjects can get me where I want to get to in 5 years, 10 years, for example. Check all the university entry requirements. So really important to look at the English level. Do they require a minimum IELTS grade as well? So yeah, something very, very important to look at, obviously as an international student in particular. And then, yeah, just to reiterate, cast your net wide. Like we were saying before, sometimes the best name university isn't the best choice for you and your specific subject. So really, really consider, all the universities in the UK. Perhaps location is a big factor. Do you want to live in a city? Do you want to have a more rural experience? For example, Science was at Oxford, which is a smaller city, admittedly, but still in a city. Myself at University of Wales, Swansea, very rural, by the coast, and that sort of suited me at the time. So yeah, things to really think about and look out for. Okay, so Anthony, over to you and preparing one's personal statement.
Yeah, no, it just got me thinking about locations and how important it was in selecting my university, because it is one of those things, you're not just going to be studying all the time, you're going to be living in the particular place for a significant amount of time. If you're doing an undergraduate degree, it's 3 years or 4 years. So that is quite a bit of commitment to make. So like in my head, I was hung up. I didn't want to be in a big city. I come from a big city. I didn't want to be in a big city anymore. And I picked a smaller city, and that worked for me. So those are also things that factor into the decision making. Okay, over to preparing a personal statement. That this is like the most, people say, is the most important part of your application, and it can be the most important part of your application. But there are a few things to remember. As for applying for undergraduate courses in the UK, you need to have one personal statement that goes for all the universities you're applying for. You can't tailor and change as you would for say a master's or a higher education degree later on. Your personal statement is 4,000 characters, which is around 500 words, and it needs to be relevant. It needs to have enough evidence to support why you are the best candidate for the particular course that you've applied for. It's always good to talk about personal experiences and how your experiences have helped you develop the interest in your specific area of choice. And it needs to be relevant and personal to you. I'm going to go into greater detail about some basic do's and don'ts, things that I've encountered when working with students over the years, things to avoid and all sorts of things. But say for international students, again, it's always good to have a bit of a tiny paragraph within your mini paragraph where you just talk about why you want to study in the UK, because as an international, you're crossing seas to come and study in a particular country. So there you can also talk about, I remember writing about how the cosmopolitan environment of the UK was one of the reasons why I wanted to come and live and study in the UK. And that's again one of those things that you can add to your personal statement. If we just go on to the do's and don'ts, the basics would be about the things that you should do would be to show your strengths, outline your ideas clearly. You want to be, sorry, Max, slide, thank you. You want to be enthusiastic. You want to show that you're interested in the course you've applied. Yeah, it did change. Okay. But there was a bit of a lag, sorry.
I think it's my internet, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, and you need to expect to produce several drafts of your personal statement. No one gets it right the first time. And always get various people to look through your personal statements. Sometimes when you're writing and you've been writing for months, you don't spot errors, but it's always easy to get a second opinion, and they might spot things. The last thing you want to have on there is poor grammar. This will lead me to the don'ts. Don't rely on a spell checker. It doesn't always pick everything up. So, make sure that your spellings, your grammar is spot on when you're writing. Don't exaggerate. If you haven't read 500 books, don't say you have, because you will get caught out at an interview. When I was preparing for my interview, it was very much, it's very easy to just want to name drop, say, oh, you've read Foucault and you've read Derrida and all sorts of things. You're 18, no one expects you to read it all. So, just don't exaggerate. If you haven't done something that you think you should have done, there is no should have. You are unique and your application should be saying that. Do not leave it to the last minute. And I couldn't stress this enough, because just when you least expect it, your IT will give up, you'll have internet blackouts, or your application won't submit, and then you need help from the UCAS team. And all of these things are possibilities. So, don't leave it till the deadline. Try and get it in as soon as you can. Also, from just a mental health perspective, it's so much better to just have off your chest once it's done, because then the conditional offers start trickling in and you feel motivated, and it's a good place to be in. And last but not the least, don't be tempted to buy or copy personal statements. It happens so often, and it's really an old problem, but unfortunately still very much a problem today. If you have copied your personal statement of somebody, you will know, because of more than 10% with somebody else, it's going to be flagged, and that can potentially jeopardize your chances of getting in, because the universities are informed. So, that's just a basic thing. Just don't. Write whatever you think is relevant to you. Some other things that I've experienced when I was writing my personal statement is, there's no need to fill it up with personal facts. And try to avoid cliches. It's very tempting, and I've read this probably 100 times, where people have said, ever since I was a little girl, little boy, I have wanted to do something. The admissions team have read that. Everyone, when they were little, they wanted to become an astrophysicist. They don't want to hear that anymore. Talk about how you worked towards a particular goal. If you've been interested in medicine and you're inspired by your parents, write about it. But that isn't evidence for why you should be allowed to do a degree. Write about how your parents have inspired you. Write about things that you've seen them go through along the way. Just the fact that your parents are doctors is not enough. It's not an anecdote. It's not relevant. It's just a personal fact, but it's not relevant. And don't think of it as a list. Things like, I'm experienced, I'm studious, I'm intelligent. No, they know that. Show how. So it's don't feel confined to list everything you've ever done in your entire life up until that point, and don't feel restricted to to start every sentence with I. You can talk about your thoughts, you can talk about your feelings, you can talk about an internship experience that changed your life, but don't say things that are like lists. Basically, doesn't really go down very well. A slightly off the topic here. Another thing that I have sort of experienced while people are doing application, something really simple is your email address. It's on finishing our application, and maybe when you're creating your UCAS application, it's good to have a professional email address as a student. I remember my email address when I was 12. I don't want to talk about it today because it's so embarrassing. It doesn't matter if you think of yourself as, I once had a student that had batman@gmail.com. I mean, it's amusing, but it's not going to cut it. So try and have something simple, your initials at, your name dot your last name at. It does help. I'm not saying you'll automatically get rejected, but why take that chance? You can talk about your love for Batman later on. So that's something that I would definitely say. It's something that's overlooked quite often, but it does really make a difference. So once you've done, once you've slogged away, you've put together your application, there are a few tips on finishing your application, and we're going to go on to that next. As I've emphasized just now, submit in good time. Don't wait till the deadline. It doesn't help. For international students, now this is a bit tricky and I struggled with it. Make sure your residency dates don't overlap. They will ask you for a permanent address. You can only live in one place at one time. So don't feel tempted to put in, country of residence to the country you live now. It has to be, it's something that confuses a lot of people because forms don't state it clearly, but make sure you put the address where you're filling the application up from. If you're living with mum and dad, write that. If you're, at a boarding school and that's your permanent address, write that. Don't write anything else because that is confusing. Check everything before you submit. Where people say confirm email address, don't just copy paste. It's very tempting. I know they're long forms and you just want to, control C+V your entire form through. Make sure you type it in, check that all the email addresses are correct. Details of references, which is, the next point. You need to contact your referees. If your school isn't a school that normally does UCAS applications, this needs to be done well in advance because you will need them to give their details. They will need to put in their references and their supporting statements on time on the portal. Make sure you get their details right. When emails bounce, UCAS doesn't get in touch, tell you that that's happened. They just count it as no reference, which is scary. So let's not do that. The other thing is just make sure that you've got all the documents you need to support it. If you've done, competitions that are relevant to your, to the course that you want to apply for, and you've done well and you've got certificates, by all means, add on supporting statements. But again, make sure they're relevant to what you want, what you're trying to do. Of course, you're allowed to talk about other interests. So, if you say been playing the piano since you were 4, and at the same time you want to become a doctor, you can talk about it and you can give supporting evidence, but that can't become your course. Again, ensure your name is entered correctly. By that I mean as it appears in the passport. I've had lots of students, they have a completely different name on their passport, but they'll say my name is Bunny. It's fine, you want to be called Bunny, but you can only tell people that you want to be called Bunny once you're through to university and people take you seriously. If your name on your passport is a particular name, stick to that in your application, please, because your offer will be made to that name, your certificates will be made to that name, and chances are your A-level or your GCSE grades will also be made to that name. And just make sure you've uploaded everything. All the compulsory documents checked, anything optional, just read through everything. That's basically the top tip on finishing your application.
Fantastic. And so Anthony, how many references would you advise a student gets?
Well, it depends on the university, but for UCAS, it would be at least 2. So it is very important to have, and again, with the references, there have to be people, it can't be, mum or dad who's writing a reference saying my son is brilliant. Of course, they think that. But, it's also just, it has to be your teacher or your tutor, or, in some cases, heads of years, heads of schools are the ones who are writing the references. So that becomes, it's good to just contact them in advance, because when they get an email saying fill up a reference, they might be in the middle of something and they might be really busy, or they won't know to prepare for it, because sometimes your referees want time to prepare to ensure that they give the best reference they can. And just overall, I think the application is, some universities have interviews as part of their processes. For them, the interview will then become you proving everything you are on paper, but most universities don't do interviews at undergraduate level. So your best version of yourself needs to be in that application. So you need to pick what goes in there and you need to make sure it's relevant. So yeah, I think.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, yeah, so now we're going to basically have more of a conversation about our experiences at university, and yeah, how we found life at university in our different choices that we made, and yeah, things to look out for, and just sort of some general tips and guidance, I suppose. So Anthony, starting with the first question, how did you choose to want to study at the University of Oxford?
Right. So I wanted to study in Oxford since, well, I won't say ever since I was a little girl, but since I decided that I no longer that I wanted to study abroad. I knew I wanted to live in England. Don't ask why, but I had this obsession. I think that I wanted to live in England. It could be, some of the films that I was watching at the time, and I decided that I wanted to do social and cultural anthropology because I was interested in it. And then I went to the league tables, and I chalked out what the top 10 universities were in the field. And then I did a bit of research as to what the student life is like, because on these league tables, you do get these a column that will generally tell you student satisfaction. And that was really important to me because I didn't want to go to a place I would be miserable in. So, because, you're already leaving your friends and your family and you're moving countries to go somewhere. So Oxford ticked a lot of my boxes because it's not a really big city. I did put in a few applications in London as well, but I secretly didn't want to live in London because it's too busy, too scary for me. So I decided to pick, I went for Oxford, I went for St. Andrews. So all very remote locations in a sense. But yeah, so that's sort of how I went about it. How about you, Max?
Great stuff. Yeah, so University of Wales, Swansea. I really wasn't sure where I wanted to go to university. My levels were pretty good, but I sort of specifically was engaged by law in particular when I got the opportunity to study that for the first time. So that kind of inspired me to choose law as an undergraduate degree. And I had connections with, in Wales as well. I had some friends that were living there. I knew Swansea was it's a small city, but it's also an incredible location next to the sea. Lots of rural environments to sort of roam around in and explore and stuff. It's a really lovely environment. So I thought, okay, I'll go there and I had some friends there, like I said, and I knew it was a friendly place, beautiful location, and I also had good connections with international universities as well. So doing law and Spanish, like I said, gave me that opportunity to study overseas for a year as part of my degree. So that was another clincher, to sort of choose Swansea. But yeah, we just got a question here, Sandy. Did you get homesick when you went to the UK for the first time?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I mean, I think that's quite natural to feel a bit homesick. I was homesick, but I was also just incredibly excited. I think I was both terrified and excited at the same time. Yes, it was the first time I was leaving home and my sheltered life, but it was also the first time I was going to be in like this absolutely magical place.
Yeah.
And you make friends really quickly as well. And you get into the rhythm of things, and I think I was more excited that I was homesick, I have to admit. I hope my mum's not on this call, but yeah. So Max, I just imagine, I just see law as a really serious subject, obviously compared to anthropology, which is just talking about things. And how did you manage your workload?
Yeah, so yeah, it was tricky at times. I think especially because I was doing law and Spanish as a sort of combined sandwich degree is what they call it.
Yeah.
So part of my time was spent learning the language of Spanish and sort of diving into the literature a little bit and sort of focusing on grammar. And then the other part of it was very sort of law, obviously law focused, but very theoretical. Had to learn a lot of cases and go through tutorials as well as sort of larger seminars as well. So yeah, it really helped having a more blended experience as well. So we did have lectures that were online as well as in person. So that was really interesting that we got that opportunity to reiterate what we were learning in seminars, at home in your own time as well. So that really helped. And then when we had sort of weekly tutorials of around sort of 10 students, just to firm up certain areas of law that we were focusing on that term. That was very, very helpful as well. So yeah, it was tricky. Obviously, you want to have fun as well and sort of socialize and go out and sort of, join different clubs and things. Yeah, it is a balance, definitely a balance, and it's a skill that you will take forward with you after university as well. Because at the start it is tough. How did you find that?
Oh, I think I struggled a bit with just sort of feeling like I didn't belong. But then I looked around and everyone was feeling the same. So that made me feel better. And I remember that my supervisor told me, and he's been lecturing for like 50 years, and he was like, I still have this feeling that I don't belong. And, here I am. So, you just sort of get used to it. I think initially it can be a bit daunting. Lots of things, you're away from home, you're missing your family, your friends, you worry you won't make friends, and then you start making friends, and then you want to have fun because you're in a new place. But then the workload, just sort of catches on. I think it was challenging at times, but I think I learned a lot from it. I really did. I always like to read quite a bit anyway. But it was quite intense. You have 8 weeks of just non-stop tutorials, but it's intense, but I think it's something that you eventually just sort of get used to.
And would you say that it's obviously Oxbridge is quite unique in its tutorial system? My subject seminars were sometimes had 80 to 100 people in them. Obviously that's very different to Oxbridge. Can you talk just a tiny bit about how the system is?
So we'd have lectures which had a fair few students on it, so you'd have like 20 or 30 people attending a lecture, and you didn't have to necessarily be a part of the course to attend the lecture. So I audited lots of different courses that I was interested in. So I did anthropology and law just because I was interested in it. I did medical anthropology as just a lecture because I was interested in it. So the lectures are fairly like open to people of your discipline, so anyone on the anthropology course could go in and just be a part of the lecture. But our seminars had 5 to 6 students max, so it's a smaller group, and it was a lot more intense in what we did, and our tutorials were mainly one-on-one. So you and your lecturer just going through your essay, or we had another person, so it was like 2:1, so incredibly small groups, but it just made sure that the discussions were just that much more in depth. I really felt like I was looked after in a way, because you can talk about how you're finding your course, you can talk about what you find interesting in a particular reading, and for a lot of people, if they're especially shy, and we saw this from the seminars, they wouldn't really talk that much, but by the time it got to the tutorial, people felt more confident voicing their opinions, and I think the tutorial style of teaching really does that. And I found that, initially I was quite scared of it, but I started to really enjoy it because I found it to be a really safe space where I could discuss my learning, and we were doing things in my, based on my learning needs, my interests, so to say. So that was really, really good. Over to accommodation. What's it like by the sea, Max? Did you get a private flat share or hold a residence? What's it like?
So how it's structured, normally in the first year of university, you go into a flat share, or sort of halls of residence is what they call it. So yeah, I was on campus at Swansea University, and there were about 20 other people in the sort of the same floor, and about 12 of those people I'm still really good friends with to this day. So I was very, very fortunate with the people that I was just thrown into with, because it is somewhat random. They study different subjects. And obviously you're all the same age group. But yeah, you're all coming to university for the first time. So you have that shared experience, and that really builds a bond. That personally for me and for many, many other people, I don't know if it's the same for you, Anthony, that it really, lifelong friends. It can build.
Oh, absolutely. So did you have lots of communal places to just, make food together, eat, hang out, and all of that sort of stuff? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So we had one shared kitchen, which had an oven, a microwave, and sort of all the sort of necessities that you need. So yeah, it worked. And then after the first year, you then tend to choose to move into a flat, or potentially a house with rooms that you can then have more people, maybe 6, 7, 8 people. So yeah, you kind of pick your friends, and then you can choose to live with them. What was your accommodation situation like, Science?
It was so I really wanted an accommodation on site, because obviously as an international student you can't just go and look around very much. So it was the option of picking privately rented places that I'd have to like see on Skype at the time, which was popular, or you would or you just got accommodated on site. And luckily I did get accommodated on site, but in it was like an old Victorian house, and there were like 8 others, all on different floors, and we had 2 shared kitchens, and just a lounge area downstairs where everyone would watch telly, and things like that. And it was really nice. I think what I found quite interesting was, I mean, and I didn't find this information anywhere when I was applying, was what you needed to bring. So just like a packing list. I know at Oxford summer courses we do packing lists, because I know right around in like a month or two I'm going to start like talking to students about what they can bring and what they can expect. But I didn't know anything about what I had to get. So you just think, okay, I've got a limit on my luggage, so I can't pack everything. But do I need to get like cutlery? Do I need to get like basic things, just for the first day, even if your plan is to go shopping? So when I arrived, the kitchen had everything. So I never really needed to have carried anything with me. And it's something so small, but it does cause anxiety in people who are moving across seas and oceans to go somewhere, just to know what they can expect. And we had a fully equipped kitchen. It's like a student house. Would I want it right now? No, but it was great. And yeah, I mean, I made some very good friends. I'm friends for life, really. In that situation. But yeah, I mean, you also have I think flat shares are also now more popular with accommodation options, but again, that would tie in nicely, I think, to what we did for costs. It was quite different for me. I mean, Oxford generally is a more expensive town / city to be in, so that's there, but you do get various bursaries for students and things like that. That does help. Did you how was Swansea in terms of costs?
So costs, again, I think this is another thing to think about. Where the location you live in for university will affect the cost of how much it costs to live there. So Swansea University, Swansea, the town itself, is not particularly on the expensive side compared to London. Obviously, it's not nothing like that. So we were lucky enough that maybe I think I lived off almost 40 to 50 pounds every week, a week and a half or so.
Oh, so, don't joke.
Yeah. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. And also with student discounts, most of especially these university towns like Oxford, even Swansea to a certain extent, they are fantastic at doing student discounts in most places. So wherever you go to buy coffee or go out for food or go out for drinks, then you'll always get some kind of a cheaper deal. So that's
definitely.
Yeah, fantastic. And how was so Anthony, what about career guidance at Oxford University? How did they?
So they had a dedicated careers office which would help you just kind of figure out if you were looking for internships while you were doing a degree, if you were looking for part-time jobs as students as well, and obviously longer term planning. And outside of just having a dedicated department for the entire university, your individual colleges would also have your counsellors. So you would have a college advisor assigned to you when you first show. So the college advisor is there to kind of make sure you settle in to life in the college, and acts as your career guidance counselor as well. And those relationships, I think, are quite very one-on-one, where you can talk about what your future plans are, what you want to do next. I remember at the time talking about wanting to do a PhD, so I got a lot of support in terms of writing a research proposal, putting together some things. But yeah, you have a dedicated department, and they're really, really good, because they they do those things where a lot of people end up studying something and then midway through their degree realize this is not what they really want to do. So if you're in that headspace as well, you can actually honestly tell them, and they work you through the process of if you had to like change careers, what you would want to do, what you would need to do, and they even work out the costs for you. If say I remember a friend of mine wanted to leave what she was doing in anthropology and just move to law. So she had to do a conversion course. So they kind of worked out what she would need to do. So I think that was really, really good, very helpful. And I think students feel really supported in that sort of a thing. Did you have specialized career guidance as well?
We did have a guidance team as well. Admittedly, I didn't use them too much personally, but yes, there's a team on hand, absolutely, at any point, and this will be the same for most, if not all, universities in the UK. That there will be a dedicated team, especially as you approach graduation. It's it's a great thing to be able to bounce off ideas, and people that are in the working world get their viewpoint other than your parents or connections that you already have. So.
And I think also some big companies putting up like placement cells and things like that in college, because they would do careers fairs, and if you were, say, looking for an internship in London, or things like that, you would have these dedicated days when you had people from JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs on site, and they would do interviews with you and sort of tell you a bit about what you can expect, which I think is a great networking opportunities as well, because you might not necessarily think you're interested in something, but it doesn't hurt to just go. So that was. Oh, and we had a lot of networking opportunities in that sense as well, because we'd have regular dinners, like formal dinners. So, we got to meet up with people from outside of our course, which is always really good. We would have formal dinners across colleges as well. So we would meet people from other colleges, chat to professors from different lectures. And, that's how I also made, some friends that were completely outside of my, field of study. So yeah, no, I think that was really good. Were you part of any groups or clubs? I imagine you were.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, so I was part of the tennis team. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And again, a great way of networking as well, and meeting new people, and just having a different perspective on things as well. We used to go and play every other weekend. We travel around Wales, and a couple of matches in the UK as well. So that was really, really great fun. But yeah, there's so many clubs and groups at university. Sandy, were you a member of some of those clubs?
I did. So I sort of stood for, because you get elected to the graduate body. So I stood for to be a welfare officer. So I did a lot of student welfare work because I was really interested in that area. Also, we got to organize this absolutely lovely brunch, which I really enjoyed once a week. And I sang in the choir. So we had a college choir. So I sang in the choir. And that was again really, really, really good, and you can do all sorts of things. I remember we had now obviously you're an athlete because you play tennis. There was a croquet club. It's not really a sport, it's a game, but I was a part of that, which was quite fun as well.
It's a very unique English, I think it's an English sport, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I know they call it a sport, it's more a game.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really enjoyed that as well. But I my friends, especially in Oxford, it's really big to be on the rowing team. So my friends, they were on the rowing team. You just need to be a bit more athletic for it, which it wasn't really my thing. But, I was part of the philosophy club where, you just go sit around and talk to people about, what you thought about philosophers. And there's always something for everyone, I think, because people did like all sorts of things. Like they had yoga clubs and cooking clubs. And so I think that's also just one thing to just like read the notice boards, look at I know in the first few weeks it was quite overwhelming because you didn't know what any of those things were. And you were handed so many flyers that you would just go like, I don't really know what I'm doing. Yeah. But once you find your feet, I think it's good to like look out for the things, because there is something for everyone. I do think. I do think that, yeah.
And I also think you made a really good point there that you can dive into other areas that interest you as well. So it's not like you just have to, if you study law, you don't just have to join the law clubs or whatever. If you're interested in other areas, it's an opportunity to meet new people in different subjects, interests as well. So, and it doesn't just have to be sports. If you're not sporty, then there's something for you. Absolutely, no question. There's so many different things to join. Whether you said like cooking or philosophy or if you've got an interest in it, you'll find other people.
Exactly. And I think what was really good is that if it didn't exist, you had the right to create one, because we created our own film society because our college didn't have one. So we were like, well, will just start something, and so you do have that sort of options throughout the board. So whether it's music or sports or whatever, I do think that there is something for everyone. Unfortunately for me, I couldn't do any experiences abroad as part of my degree. Even though we had to do field work, we were encouraged to do it from the library. So there's so many libraries, just go to one, pick some books and write a dissertation. So I didn't actually get to do a year abroad, but you did.
I did. That's a good question, actually. Do we, this is just an aside, can international students go onto the Erasmus program or the Turing scheme? I'm sure they can, right? If you're part of the university.
Yes, but it's different application process for the Erasmus scheme. But there are other study abroad programs. Like I know Oxford do one with Princeton, where it's just an exchange and you can do a semester in Princeton and you have a student from Princeton doing a semester in Oxford. So all sorts of stuff's possible, but it's again one to look out for. It could be department specific as well.
Yeah.
So I was in anthropology and our thing was that we just had to look at books and write about them. So we didn't really have enough time to really go out and do anything in that sense. But I know my friends who were doing economics or who were even doing things like the MBA course, they went to San Francisco for a semester and it was great. So, I mean, I know that there are opportunities. So it's again, one to talk to your department about, talk to your college guidance counselor about it, because if you say that you are interested in something, there is always something on the other going on.
I think that's a good point. I think with this question, then I think if I basically say, yeah, I went to Spain on the Erasmus program, etc. Obviously that's now been abolished because of Brexit, but it's been replaced by the Turing scheme. But I'm not going to specifically say it's open to international students. I'll say it is open to UK students, but then you'll have to inquire as to
because the requirements are always changing.
Yeah,
they are always changing. There are specific ones as well, specific for particular German students, specific to some other students. So I think definitely worth shopping around a bit. But how was your year abroad in Spain?
Oh, it's fantastic actually. Yeah, so
did you get to Ibiza?
I didn't get to Ibiza. No. I went later on when I was a little bit older. But yeah, no. So I basically had the option to choose. I think it was 5-6 universities that Swansea had partnerships with in Spain, and I didn't even know Salamanca existed. I'd never heard of the city actually, and all I'd known was like Madrid and Barcelona, maybe Valencia at the time. But it turned out to be the most year-defining experience of my life, and absolutely incredible. I got to study with students again from all over Europe, in one of the most beautiful cities in Europe, and a great law department as well, which I was very lucky to have there. And I traveled all around Spain during that year, built so many more connections, expanded my network, and gave me the confidence, really the sort of the life skills almost to then pursue going back to Spain after graduating to work there, and then to have the confidence to then go to Hong Kong and sort of network in even more of that multicultural sort of setting. So yeah, it kind of set the foundation for my professional life really and personal life. It was incredible. You said you didn't study overseas?
I did, but for me the whole Oxford experience was several years abroad, wasn't it? Because it also made me decide that I wanted to live in the UK. Previously I'd always wanted to, but I didn't really know if I'd like it, and I know a lot of friends who haven't, and but yeah, it changed my life. It made me want to not only be in the UK but to continue to live in Oxford, which is it's hard, but it's something that I've really enjoyed, and it came with its own challenges, as with any other things, but as you said, I think it really transforms you. I think there was a lot of growing up that happens. There's a sense of independence, you're more confident, the fact that you've met people from all over the world, and it really happens in student towns because you do have people from across the globe. I think it just made me a better person as well.
I think that's an excellent point. I mean, especially I think the fact that you have to just survive on your own. You're put into a different environment, and when you're challenged, when you feel uncomfortable, that's when you really start to grow and learn about who you are and who you want to be. So I think studying overseas, whether it's in the UK for your whole degree, like you did, or whether it's for a year for UK students overseas as part of the Turing scheme or what the Erasmus scheme was. Yeah, I think it's such a valuable experience to do. So yeah, I think that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Anthony, for all of that insight. And if you want to have any other information about our experiences of studying overseas, if we can help in any way, then please just drop us an email. If you've got any questions about potentially studying as part of a 2 or 4 week summer course as well, to sort of dip your toes in and see what it's like to study in the UK, then again, please reach out to us. We'd love to help you. But yeah, thank you again, Anthony, and look forward to seeing some of you students, on a follow-up call perhaps, or even one of our in-person courses, or even on one of our online programs as well, because we do have that as an option too. So yeah, thank you again. That was awesome, Anthony. Well done. That was really, really good.
Thank you.
That was excellent.
Really?
Yeah. No, really, really good.
How long did we